Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here in my second progress report. My name is Michalis Theocharous. I am 22 years old, and today I would like to talk about aesthetic materials in minimal invasive dentistry. I am Greek Cypriot. I'm a first year PhD student and fourth year dental student. My supervisors are Eniko Zabo and Beata Keremi. As everyone here, I have a vision, and this is the ultimate success of indirect restorations. And my mission to achieve this is by enhancing the quality of techniques used in restorative dentistry. Currently, my work centers around two projects which aim to redefine the interface between conservative dentistry and aesthetic dental materials. My first project is about investigating the efficacy of deep margin elevation in indirect restorations, which is a systematic review and a meta-analysis. It is well known that caries causes billions of cases each year. Caries margins can either remain to a supragingival or paragingival level, but if not detected early, then they can extend to a subgingival level and cause many clinical challenges. A very frequent clinical question which arises is how can we manage these subgingival cavities? The first method is by placing the restoration directly to the subgingival level. However, many clinical challenges arise during the procedure, such as the rubber dam isolation and the impression-taking procedure. In addition to this, there is 2.5 times higher chance of gingival recession and bleeding than placing a restoration to a supragingival level. A second method is through the surgical crown lengthening procedure, which is an invasive procedure that can severely decrease the crown to root ratio. And if this happens, then the long-term tooth survival can decrease by half. A third method is the deep margin elevation technique, which is a restorative technique used to reposition the subgingival cavities to a supragingival level by placing a restorative material, such as composite, glass ionomer, or resin-modified glass ionomer cement. So the unmet need is to find a non-invasive margin relocation technique with improved clinical outcomes, and my aim is to investigate the efficacy of deep margin elevation. So the first clinical question which arises is whether indirect restorations with deep margin elevation have an adverse effect on the periodontal health. Periodontal health will be assessed as a function of bleeding or probing, plug index, and gingival index, to name a few. And other outcomes such as secondary caries and postoperative sensitivity will be considered secondary in this study. If my hypothesis is correct and deep margin elevation does not negatively affect the periodontal health of the patients, then we will be able to increase the success rate of the aesthetic indirect restorations. The second clinical question which arises is whether deep margin elevation can increase the success of the indirect restorations, and this question will be answered through in vitro studies. And the outcomes to be investigated are microleakage, fracture resistance, and failure mode. Following a systematic search in PubMed, Embase, and Central, I ended up with around 9,600 articles, but only 39 of them were eligible to be included in the final review, and an additional 7 studies were found through citation chasing. This is a preliminary forest plot regarding the fracture resistance of the indirect restorations. It describes the mean difference of fracture resistance of posterior indirect restorations with versus without deep margin elevation. Fracture resistance is measured in newtons, and the higher the fracture resistance, the more the load-bearing capacity of the restoration. Fracture resistance is of utmost clinical importance since this is one of the leading causes of the failing of the indirect restorations, and it's important that restorations have at least 1,000 newtons of fracture resistance in order to be able to withstand the masticatory load even in the heaviest bruxism cases. Any point estimate which lies on the right side of the graph indicates that the restoration had a higher fracture resistance when deep margin elevation was performed with it, but any point estimate which lies on the left side of the graph indicates that when the restoration was placed directly to a subgingival level, then it had a higher fracture resistance. This preliminary forest plot consists of 17 studies with 55 entries and a total collection of 1,370 teeth with equal allocation to both the intervention and the control group. This forest plot consists of a subgroup analysis between full coverage restorations and partial coverage restorations. Heterogeneity was found to be high in this forest plot, which I tried to investigate the clinical reasons for this heterogeneity. That's why I tried to look into whether these specific studies, what type of material of deep margin elevation they used, what material the indirect restorations had, what was the crosshead speed, for example, during the fracture resistance test. However, I still did not derive to a conclusion why heterogeneity is high from a dental aspect of view. These are the results for the partial coverage restorations. As we can see, the results are not statistically significant. However, they are clinically relevant since it seems that deep margin elevation does not have a deteriorating effect on the fracture resistance of the restorations. So we can get the clinical benefits of the deep margin elevation without having the fear that the partial coverage restoration will break. For full coverage restorations, the results are both statistically significant and clinically relevant, since we can see that restorations that they were cemented directly to a subgingival level had a higher fracture resistance. However, even with deep margin elevations, restorations had a fracture resistance of way more than 1,000 newtons, meaning that still deep margin elevation can be used for full coverage restorations without the fear that the restoration will break. Overall, we can conclude that restorations with deep margin elevation had 13.51 newtons higher fracture resistance than restorations without deep margin elevation. Currently, I'm in the risk of bias assessment, which I aim to finish in the following weeks, and I will wait for the statistician to generate me all the figures and tables regarding all my outcomes. The second project is about investigating the survival rate and the fracture resistance of the resin-bonded fixed dental prosthesis in posterior teeth, which is again a systematic review and a meta-analysis. It is well known that full crown preparation approximately removes half of the tooth structure. And it is expected that 10% of the teeth will experience pulp necrosis within 2 months. Minimally invasive resin-bonded fixed partial dentures bear the main advantages to preserve tooth strength, to have a lower risk of pulp exposure due to its conservative nature, and since we do not remove unnecessary tooth structure, this gives us the possibility in the future to still prepare the abutment for full coverage crown. So the unmet need is to find a less invasive treatment option to replace missing posterior teeth with high survival rate. And my aim is to investigate the survival rate and the fracture resistance of the resin-bonded minimal invasive fixed partial dentures. This topic is feasible, and I'm planning to start the Prospero drafting in the upcoming September. As Hippocrates said, primum non nocere, meaning first do not harm, suggesting that we should always be initially minimally invasive with our preparations. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to answering all your questions.
I have a question regarding your first project. What do you exactly mean by the term failure mode and how it's measured? Can you elaborate more on that?
Thank you very much. So failure mode or fracture pattern, for example, can be classified as irreparable if it's below the cemento-enamel junction, and if it's above, we can consider it as repairable. Also in the literature, repairable fractures are considered restoration fracture, for example, or coronal tooth fractures. So it is important that restorations have repairable fractures and not, for example, have irreparable fracture, because if the fracture is irreparable, for example, at the root surface of the tooth, then we will not be able to restore it.
I just wanted to ask, since you're already at that step, in the case of in vitro studies, what type of risk of bias assessment tool are you using?
Thank you. So currently I'm using the Queen tool for the risk of bias for the in vitro studies, which consists of 12 domains that I have to give a scoring system either 0, 1, or 2, based on how informative the article is in respect to this specific domain. For example, some domains that they are investigated was whether the comparator group was explained sufficiently, or perhaps if the aim was clear, and many others.
Were there any recommendations by the studies on which material to use for DME, or what have you seen in your data extraction tables?
Thank you for your question. So for me, it's part of my study to also give guidelines perhaps in what type of material is the best for deep margin elevation. Some studies suggest that if you cannot perform absolute isolation, then it's preferably perhaps to use glass ionomer that doesn't require absolute isolation. But if you are able to perform absolute isolation, then perhaps composite can be a better treatment option.
Regarding your second project, I'm assuming that it will be like a time to event analysis, so survival analysis. How is it usually reported in the articles? So what type of graphs are they using? And what is the usual follow-up time?
Thank you for your question. So they use the Kaplan-Meier curves to see what was the duration of the survival rate. And they consider that the restoration did not survive if, for example, it experienced debonding, if it was fractured, or if it caused any periodontal health problems which would require the removal of the restoration. And unfortunately, there are not many long-term clinical studies regarding the resin bonded minimally invasive fixed partial dentures for posterior region. That's why most probably the target will be the short term, which is going to be 2 to 3 years.